This is ArgusoogRadio.
This is Simply Your Health, and if this is your first time listening, welcome. And, of course, hello to everybody in the chat room. Hello to all the regular listeners. I'm glad you could join me, and if you're listening live, click on the chat tab and go to one of the
want to get your thoughts on that?
IRC links, chat room software links, and log in and talk to us. By the way, if you have any questions when you're in the chat room, just put them in capital letters and type them in, and we'll get those up, queued up, and we'll answer your questions. Well, let's talk about this thing called virtual reality and your health, and what it really has to do with, folks, has more to do with your psychological health. I'm finding a lot of people through all the various efforts and exposures and things that I've come across, whether it be groups talking about L&N, whether it be organizations planning to run into caves, whether it be people scared so bad they don't know which way to go, and they don't want just their head in a hole, they want their whole body. But yet, when these people begin to press the flesh, there's a lot of dysfunction. Why? And is there any disconnect between how some people behave in the virtual world and how people behave in the real world, the real flesh world? So I've got to ask this question. Why is being together in a conference where you can actually connect and talk and share so much different than when you're on a virtual conference call, meeting, conference, where there's nobody else in a real way there? Well, why is it so different? Why is being around people of like mind and efforts that bring us together, like, maybe the Freedom Festival, maybe a rally about whatever, why is that so different than just sitting down and watching it on TV? Why is it so different? Well, we're going to talk about that today. Folks, one of the things that I think we need to be very, very cautious about is the fact that we can become, let me back up and actually rephrase it. We must become aware that there is a danger in the virtual world. Now you might say, oh no, there's not. Oh yes, there is. See, the actions and behaviors associated with many activities on the internet become, a venue for disconnect to reality. Our YouTube videos, our chat rooms, our emails, all give us a platform of technology that allows us to get together, right? During this break with which Argusoog and everyone took a respite, a vacation, a holiday for 2 weeks, I began to ponder and think about things, and I think we are much better off with our technology. That's not to say we're not. But there is a danger with this technology. There's something very important you need to be careful about. And it's so important that I want you to know that it's much, much more dangerous and much more powerful than the programming that comes over a television. But it's very much the same thing. So what is it? Well, so many people live their lives on the internet that when they begin to address certain scenarios, let's say maybe a disaster scenario, they've been talking about maybe L&N. And they get involved on YouTube and they get in chat rooms and they go and do several things. They might be talking about 911. They might be talking about Element. They might be talking about, whatever. But what happens is there is a venue there, this technology, that gives, that easily assists a certain kind of behavior. And this behavior is a disconnect, a virtual life, role-playing personality, and psychological behavior that is disconnected from reality. And this makes it possible for people to exaggerate their conclusions. They're extrapolating maybe a topic, and they feel safe to expose, explore, and go beyond the normal cautious approach that they might have in person. It's manifesting, folks. It allows a person to really manifest their behavior. So I just ask you, for example, how do you behave in chat rooms? Would you be happy with the behavior you have in a chat room if it was the same in person? I think we're all guilty. We're more bold. We become jerks much more easily. And what we must really begin to understand is, how is this affecting our mental health? Well, that's not something that hasn't been talked about in circles for a long time, but we haven't talked about it on this broadcast. See, this venue makes it possible for this non-emotional, threatening venue to be a place for the expression of a very, very growing concern, and it's growing as rapidly as attention deficit. And it's a disconnect from reality. Now, this usually results in virtual behavior mismatching physical reality. It's assisted by compulsive and obsessive tendencies that a person might have anyway, which are just as real and just as addictive as drugs and alcohol, folks. This is something that you might need to be thinking a little bit more about, how it affects you. If you have a healthy relationship with your technology, it can be one of the most wonderful things, because a long time ago, in the 50s in the United States, the Electric Rural Cooperative of the electrical industry, the electrical distribution industry, began to electrify and bring electricity to farms and rural locations and towns. Okay? When this began to happen in America, particularly in the southern two-thirds, not necessarily in the north, but in the southern two-thirds, people got out of their rockers and their chairs on their front porch, went inside their houses, shut the windows, and started turning on their air conditioner. Now, even though it was rural and even though it was country, it wasn't any different than when that happened in the city. What am I saying? People quit talking to their neighbors. People were off the front porch, and you began to see houses built without porches where you walked in, shut the door, and you never were around. Instead of being in an open carriage where you said good day to your neighbor as you drove slowly by, or you have your car window rolled up and you speed down the highway and you never talk to anybody. Not in the next car, nothing. Now, what did the technology do for us? Well, cell phones and have brought us communication. Internet has brought us communications back to the front porch in a different way. We begin to communicate without a front porch, but that communication is virtual. So how has that affected us? Folks, one of the things that I'm beginning to see as we're all trying to navigate disasters, problems, and things that this world is going to have to be addressing in order to maybe work together, is that we have to really understand where people are coming from and how did they get this way sometimes. Well, sometimes there's a huge disconnect between what they believe and state and become on the virtual world and what reality has. And there's now a science involved in determining whether or not the people actually believe what they're saying. They may say they believe it. They may consciously believe what they're saying virtually, not even knowing that they themselves have a disconnect between what's virtually being said and what they really deep down believe. That really is an issue now. So how is this technology affecting us? Well, most of the time, the worst comes from a couple of venues. First of all, does a person have a compulsive, obsessive personality to start with? If so, they're going to be leaning, folks, a little bit toward the addiction of virtual life. Now, I'm not saying that spending a lot of time on the computer, internet, and so forth is an indicator of being addicted. It has to do with how you handle it. And do you see a disconnect between behavior and actions? And that can happen. When you begin to see that happen, you will see the weirdos come out. I'm just going to tell you. When you see Argusoog and the many people that are constantly involved with the news site, the website, the technical ability and the radio broadcast, and then you see them involved in their community with events and meetings, and they meet with others virtually most of the time, but occasionally they get together in flesh. That's a balanced, healthy approach to the technology that we have. But if you work from a standpoint of posturing, and you posture to an extreme in a virtual world, by the time you pop out into reality, there's a big disconnect if you have, so to speak, allowed this virtual world to enhance your obsessive, compulsive, addictive tendencies. Some people just don't have the ability to unattach themselves, not only from these tendencies, but their need to make sure their life, their worth is connected to something important. The bigger, the more absolute important it is in a real way, the more worth they will connect to their lives. Now, folks, all of us, me included, have to feel like we have value or we lose hope. And when we lose hope, like I said, it's not too long, you're not destined to stay in this world. So, I've kind of concluded a lot of things about my 2-week respite myself, and that is that, normal responses and actions to things in this real world can become a problem with the ability to handle it. How many of you know of folks that live a life of a virtual reality? They're no longer role-playing. Their life is in this world, a virtual life. They have virtual girlfriends. They meet once a year. When they get together, they're like, it's awkward. It's like, wow, this doesn't quite jive. Folks, there's a difference between virtual and real. What is it that makes a difference? Well, I'm going to posture something for you here. Could it be possibly that when you're with somebody, the subtle frequencies and auras that you can perceive when you're near a person in their presence are so subtle, but yet the aware person can sense? Now, some people that are sensitive can see somebody virtually and go, whoa, trouble. Or at a distance can feel or sense that. But most people, they have to be there. Now, what is it then in a physical way that changes the behavior between virtual and in real? Well, maybe it's the raising of an eyebrow. Well, we try and get that. Remember all these little goody things we put on our chat rooms for smiles and pukey guys and guys sticking out their tongues? And, we've been trying to be biological units instead of just words, right? Well, what I'm suggesting to people is that we, as a group of humanity that needs to stay human, we need to realize we're like sheep and birds. We do much better as a flock, guys. Now, there are a few personality traits that might be attributed to certain parts of the zodiac. For example, those guys that are hermit type of personalities. Hey, they even need to see somebody once. So we're going to continue our little talk. I'm going to continue the talk. I guess you're going to listen. But I was talking about this disconnect, and what happens to these fellows that are hermits when they go into the mountains and they live in months and months of solitude with nobody, no cell phone, oh my, no internet, oh my. Well, they kind of get kind of crazy. There's nobody to talk to, Well, they may talk to the bears and the moose and but they don't talk to anybody. Okay, remember how you might be thinking of some maybe movies you've ever seen, maybe occasionally in your life, where there's this hermit that lives in the mountains and how kind of half crazy the guy is because he hasn't seen somebody for so long. Well, that behavior isn't going to change just because you're talking on the chat room. That tendency to be kind of disconnected with reality begins to show up in that hermit. It does the same thing for people that are just virtual in their lives. Now, it's better than nothing, but virtual is virtual. That's what it is. How many of you have ever seen maybe some kind of commercial? There's one that runs occasionally. I see it off and on. I don't watch that kind of stuff very often. But there's maybe a 25-year-old couple guys that go in, or maybe it's a girlfriend and a boyfriend. They walk into a fast food restaurant, get their food. They're sitting in a fast food restaurant at a table across from each other. They're not talking to each other. They're texting to each other, and they are 3 or 4 feet apart. And one of them texts to the other one, "I'm breaking up with you." I think that's the extreme example of the fact that we've turned virtual. Folks, is that what you want? Let me tell you, what this has done to normal, balanced mental health. It hasn't helped. And whoever maybe thought that the powers that be knew this, that they wanted you to become a virtual hermit, that they wanted you to constantly talk about prepping and constantly doing those kind of things and be an armchair survivalist, an armchair activist, because they put you on a rat wheel in the cage and you never get anything done. That might be something you ponder about the life that you live. There's not a thing wrong with the technology. We just must keep things in balance. Okay? So how can we do that? Well, one of the things that they're doing, I think, with the Awake and Aware conference is that they're having all across the world in the globe little locations where they might be having a broadcast of the event where people 5, 10, 20, 30, whatever, can get together, be together, and share in something common. Folks, we need to quit engineering our life. We need to be pioneers, not engineers. We need to put the biology back in the engineering. We need to put the biology back in the technology. This is going to be what makes it happen. So that's why I'm excited for you and the rest of the world when I see stuff like November, I think it is the 20th, there are going to be free festivals where people actually go, get together, and get things done. Another thing is that we've got not just Anonymous doing attacks on, many computer servers held by the powers that be that have tried to turn our world into a fake world. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But they're going to be pressing the flesh. Anonymous on September the 17th will actually arrive by the hordes in Wall Street, and they plan on camping in the streets for months. It's a big action. It's a big event. Physically, non-aggressive, physically protesting. Folks, could you imagine technology? That's a great thing to have. How we can organize, how we can use it for our benefit. Anonymous, what would happen if they took down Wall Street? Can you imagine what would happen if the New York Stock Exchange got attacked by Anonymous? Can you imagine? That virtual world is war. That kind of thing. Why has it become this way? I'm going to posture something here for you, and here's what I think. These are the people that brought us our fiat, fake, virtual money system. These are the ones that give you religions that are empty and hollow. These are the ones that brought you your straw man and your admiralty jurisdiction. Every damn thing they've brought you has been fake. And you know what we can do? We can use this virtual world and attack them. That's what Anonymous is doing. But don't let them in your head. Don't let them change you to a jerk in a chat room. Don't let them change you to something you wouldn't be in person. If you don't have the guts to do it in person, then it's something you're doing that has changed you. This is a war on your mind. And they knew. I'm finding a lot of research on this. We're going to be talking about a lot more in the future. They knew this had that kind of effect on us. There's tons of stuff I just found out about that they knew that this would enhance obsessive, compulsive, addictive behaviors that were disjointed from reality, and our mental health would get worse. They knew this. Isn't this just absolutely bizarre? So we have to start focusing, folks, because if you stop and think about the tyranny that we've been fighting, it's all fake. The straw man is fake. The fiat central bank money is fake. The beauty of a skinny model on a runway and her posing for this new dress style is skin deep fake. Parts of people's anatomy are being changed with fake silicone and Botox. It's fake, fake, fake. Why? Because the very nature of the source of all this is hollow. And they can't manifest a life wherever they go. And I'm talking about off-world people that have been here. Wherever they go, whatever they do is fake. They have to have rule books in law, strawman, admiralty to tell them everything to do. Because, folks, they don't have this unction in their soul that directs them with a moral code built in that you and I can go and visit the Eiffel Tower and visit a foreign country. I've told you this before. We don't have to watch the rules. Occasionally you go into a country where you might be having to be careful because there's a law against chewing gum, you know. Well, that's kind of extreme. We are going to take this world back by doing what we do. And if we don't get it done, well, who says we're not still supposed to do it? We do what we must do. So that brings me back to your ability to have good mental health. And today I want to talk about detoxifying your body of all this junk in a physical and a mental way. And I'm going to be talking to you about glutathione, the master detoxifier, the master antioxidant, how it affects your mental health, how it affects your physical health. So we're going to talk about that here in a minute, and so let's go ahead and take another break, okay? You're listening to Simply Your Health, and my name is Dr. John Waterman, and I want to welcome you back to ArgusoogRadio.